You ready? Yeah, sure. Just checking the sound. Does it sound good? People hear me? Yeah? The Daniel from Medicina is going to come up and just say a few like housekeeping things, I guess. Lean back a little bit, yeah? How does it sound? Still sound okay? Check, check. Is that better? Okay. 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 And you guys can hear me okay? Yeah? All right. Yeah? Okay. Just don't touch it?
Yeah, I would say don't touch it. Oops. It'll for sure pick the voice up.
Okay. But it's picking it up okay? Yeah? Cool. Hello. Hello. Hello, everyone. Such an excellent collocation of people. Tremendous. Yeah. Okay. Sal, can you hear me? Yeah? Cool. Excellent. Excellent. I think hello, everyone. So the sound is good, and I guess the trick is just don't touch the mic too much, and it will magically stream to the Cyberdrome. I guess Daniel is going to come up and say a few words from the bookshop, and then I'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Medicine for Nightmares. Welcome to this benefit reading for the poet Bernadette Meyer. Just a quick reminder, everyone, please. We're still asking to keep your masks on at all time, unless when you're sipping from your drinks or having a snack. Enjoy the reading. Please feel free to support the bookstore. Check it out on your way out, and enjoy the reading. Yes. You can take your mask off when you read, if you want to.
Because we're 6 feet away.
Yeah, you can That's how it's been usually done in the last readings. It's okay? You're welcome.
So this is being streamed, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Indeed, yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. Before we get started, I'd like to say big thanks to all of the readers for making this happen. And I'd like to thank Caitlin for the flyers, and Jesus and Shelley, who are whose expertise is making the live stream possible. So hello to the millions of people joining us via the formerly novel, still beneficent alapatry of YouTube. Thank you for taking donations, Sally. Please make a donation. I'm sure I've already said that many, many times, but buy some books. And in fact, I was delighted and surprised by these two books, which Bernadette donated. They're both signed, so if you'd like to buy one of these, please just let me know. $40 a piece, I'd say. What else? A huge, enormous thank you to the staff here at Medicina. Daniel, Tan, Josiah, thank you so much. Please buy a book. Buy one of those books, buy one of their books, and thank all of you so much for being here. So I'm just going to get all the kind of introducing stuff out of the way at the get-go, and then I'll just get up and say people's names to remind everyone who's reading next and so forth. So in the order of the readers, Alli Warren is the author of 3 full-length books of poetry, most recently Little Hill, out from City Lights in 2020. Sundial, a new book, is just out from Nyan Editions. She edited the magazine Dreamboat and co-edited the Poetic Labor Project, both projects that seem to have sprung out of the rich estuarial soil where the utopian meets the lyric. Sophia Warsh is an artist as well as a gardener and field botanist. She has worked at the Queens Botanical Garden, Central Park Conservancy, and now the Berkeley Botanical Garden. She is an expert at identifying wildflowers and, as Bernadette's daughter, the closest of her collaborators we'll be hearing from today. Colter Jacobsen is an artist, poet, and outdoors person who lives in various locales around Northern California, sometimes here in SF. His work, which takes the form of pencil drawings, collage, photography, and lots of other media, draws heavily on memory and its various twins. He has an upcoming exhibition this fall at Tibernage Gallery in New York. Stephanie Young is a poet, teacher, editor, and activist whose work engages politics, feminism, and desire across multiple genres and forms. Her latest book, Pet Sounds, draws on the ways music is capable of summoning memory. Her other books include It's No Good, Everything's Bad, Ursula or University, Picture Palace, and Telling the Future Off. Clark Coolidge, author of over 50 books of poetry and other writing, is also a jazz drummer and caver. His most recent books are The Land of All Time and To the Cold Heart. He and Bernadette have been close collaborators and co-conspirators in shaping American poetry since the 60s. Their legendary long prose works from that time evolved in mutual conversation. And piece of big news, a selection of their letters is forthcoming from University of New Mexico Press very soon. October. All right. Now we know. Jean Day's most recent book, Late Human, was just published by Ugly Duckling Press. Her previous books include Enthusiasm, Odes, and Otium, Daydream, and The Triumph of Life, which draws on Shelley's long, unfinished poem of the same name. The Romantic poets, just as much as science, inform her writing, and she has also translated from Russian poetry. The Matter, a new chapbook, is forthcoming from Asterian Projects later this year. Gloria Frym is a poet, prose writer, and essayist. Her most recent book, How Proust Ruined My Life and Other Essays, traces how writers must read to fall in love with language's materiality. She'll be reading April 13th at Project Artaud in honor of the recent anthology Roots and Roots, Poetics at New College of California, where she was a faculty member at the graduate poetics program for many years. She has at work on a new manuscript of prose pieces entitled Lies and More Lies. She's a professor in the writing and literature programs at California College of the Arts. Neeli Cherkovski is the subject of the recent documentary It's Nice to Be With You Always, and author of more than 20 books of poetry, most recently Hang On to the Yangtze River and The Alphabet. Whitman's Wild Children, his classic book of essays and profiles in and on beat poetry, is being reissued by Lithic Press very soon in an expanded edition that will include a chapter on Bernadette. I'm so excited to hear what everyone has chosen to read of their own, and it sounds like the mic is working pretty well, so just don't touch it too much, I guess. Thank you all so much for being here. Here is Alli Warren.
Taking this off. Hey, everyone. I haven't done this for a while in person. It's great. Thank you so much, Jason, for organizing this event to honor Bernadette. I'm very honored to be here. I'm going to read two pieces. One is from Utopia from 1984. It's from the section entitled The Arrangement of Houses and Buildings, Birth, Death, Money, Schools, Dentists, Birth Control, Work, Air, Remedies, and so on.
Can you come up closer to the mic a little bit?
Yes. Houses and buildings were not just left as they were. All doors are large, none are revolving. There are no cage-like places. Elevators are transparent. All windows can open. Places open out onto other places. Hallways are generous. There is no rent. Backyards behind city buildings are joined without fences, so you could ride a horse behind the streets. Some pavements have turned back to dirt. There isn't any money. Money became so physically large that to accumulate $5, it would take a whole old-fashioned room full of these big metal things ellipsoid in shape. All the sewage of the world makes fuel plus a generous contribution from the stars. The ex-oil companies take care of that. We clean the streets. The schools are an essay on schools. You can get what you need from the stores and storehouses. If you act greedy, no one will look at you. Drugs are dispensed by old people. If you want dope, you have to go to the museum. When you die, there's no hospital. It's safe to be born and safe to die at home. There's no accidents. Hideous things have ceased to befall you. Various women and men come to your house when you need them to work against these things. Often old people say, I have never suffered pain. Old people run the newspapers and storehouses. They meet in conventions to plan the free traveling all over the world of the 18 to 25-year-olds in place of the ancient colleges. They run the nursery schools. It is to your greatest disadvantage to live in a house without an old person. You have no influence then. The whales are farmers for the humans. We eat their underwater potato baked with a steak of shark and seaweed salad in America. Poets and artists entertain the people in the neighborhood. There are contests and exchanges with other parts of the world. Neighborhoods publish books. The printing costs are paid by ex-landlords, Inc. Ex-Publishers, Inc. lost all their money investing in solid-state computer systems and are seeking to reinvest in literature. There are still cockroaches in the cities. They live in a museum built on top of the Frick called the Watt on Fifth Avenue. No children are allowed. Named after the former Secretary of the Interior, James Watt, who had an out-of-body experience at the opening and after he wasted away in a noisy wilderness somewhere. There are no dentists. Dentists had to admit at last there were herbs that cured toothaches without any pain at all. For years, the dentists were held in the jails for sadists. Now they are released and live among us. There are still doctors whom you never have to wait to see. When patients, the word patients was changed to people, or colloquially, leaks. Go to a doctor's office. The word office was changed to house. They are given tea and perhaps lessons and ointments. Acupuncture is practiced to prevent diseases. Operations are rare. They are performed in operation cathedrals. Most diseases and chronic debilitating disorders disappeared after people began to stop being paid salaries for their work. And the medical profession, the word profession has been changed to chore or inspiration, became predominantly female for a while. There was a comedy show you could still go to for a long time, where some man would stick his hand into some part of your body and say, "I'm the doctor, I know what's best for you, and my time is precious." All over the world, it was good news to know at last that by gently and aggressively rubbing the tip of the penis and the penis all over before what they used to call sexual intercourse with the great big hot sponge soaked in honey and carcade, you have a 100% chance of avoiding getting pregnant. Actually, the sponge doesn't even have to be hot, and it doesn't have to be a sponge. You can do it anyway. And when this method of birth control was first discovered, it marked the beginning of the death of both capitalism and armies. People all over the world fled from misplaced tasks. There is no useless work. Nobody has a job contributing to the making of money by somebody else. Jobs are either in the community or in the world. Nobody works to sell things, and it didn't take long to find out that with people working at useful things all the time to provide themselves and other people with what they need, and with no manipulations of currencies or power or land, there was enough food and shelter for everybody in the world. Though some in the world wound up having fewer of the luxuries than they were used to having, crime is fading away. There are still courts, and much of what the courts have to do with has to do with the rest of crime and the rest of land. There is still bad feeling about all this sharing of property and land. Maps have become much more complex than they used to be. Every place is smaller, and there are more places than before. There is at this moment no longer such a thing, though it is being worked on, as a map of the world. The air is clear, it is golden. In summer, it is iced. There is a little store on the avenue where you can stop if you want for a draft of elixir. It is golden. In summer, it is iced. Remedies become opaque in moonlight. If you're nervous, have lost love, there are the mesmeric tobaccos and aphrodisiac ones. There are the work tobaccos. Take this if you can't sleep. Take this cure for the pains of childbirth. It's a mixture that must be stolen from a neighbor and stand in a glass in the room next to you, emitting a light of all the colors. Go to the store of help to get some. There are the histories of all the individuals of the world. Everyone adds to this part of the book. I feel like I'm not used to speaking out loud for minutes at a time. I'm sorry. So that was from 1984, and this is from The Desires of Mothers to Please Others in Letters from 1994. It's called Visions or Desolation. Come on, there's always the chance the kids will do this. Fight uncontrollably like crazy, screaming like howling Buddhas, and tearing each other's never-cut-before hair out. The bigger ones hitting the smaller ones on the heads with metal tops like latent homo and heterosexuals with fierce exclamatory natures. Our plan is to just do everything ourselves without any babysitters for the next 2 weeks, and then the classes are over. Then we'll go to New York for a while again. The midwife said I had a neat uterus and she could feel the whole arms and legs of the baby. I was waking and talking to a woman on the phone the other day about a play group, and she kept using the word shoot, kept saying, "Shoot, I would do anything," and "Shoot, I understand what you mean, yes, shoot." Then we'll come back here and spend January getting ready to have the baby. Then the baby will be born at the end of the month. I can't find Dr. Spock, can you? But before that, we have to gather together all the things we need for the birth and for the baby. Cotton balls and undershirts and roasted towels and a bureau for the baby's clothes. And Marie needs a new coat. And we have to do some laundry sometime. When she plays outside now and squats to dig in the dirt, the skin of her back is exposed to the air, and they both need new tights. There isn't any snow on the ground yet. It's easy to rely on the beat poets when you're teaching. Any more abstract stuff often turns the students off. They find Frank O'Hara much too difficult. I also want a lot of red velvet material and a big red rug to induce feelings that can go past the moon. It's full again today. Those regressive jerks in my classes keep talking about how LSD makes deformed babies. These matches are called Rosebud because they have red tips of fire. So many times when you're pregnant, people can't help but tell you all the worst stories they ever heard. I miss the part of Main Street in Lenox right in front of the bank where the crosswalk led to the entrance to the library and the buses and cars came circling around the obelisk. Henneker's equivalent of an obelisk is a kind of former fountain on a triangular island at the foot of which is always lying an old apple core and a discarded ribbon. When I look up, I see a portrait of a man holding a glove. If Russell doesn't see us all tomorrow, perhaps he'll think we're not here. I have only 20 minutes left if I'm going to get any sleep. What can I give you? Is writing this offering? Lying in bed is a turmoil. Anything can enter in. Early tomorrow, a woman will come with some children. She will be able to explain things to me about this town. She teaches cross-country skiing. Now, why don't I do something like that instead of wondering only about babies, poetry, the city, the country, and the wisdom I was trying to talk to you about? Yet I must have sounded a little corrupt when I said that. I do wonder also about you and your way of slumping in a chair, which confounds your other way of looking like a jogger in pajamas. I shouldn't mention pajamas, or everyone will make fun of me. I'm sort of looking forward to this January of heavy snows and waiting, bitter cold and never parting again for a while. I don't like teaching. It distracts us. It's like everything else everybody says is healthy. Skiing, jogging, sitting up straight and being independent, eating seaweed and living in the country, the protean brain, or the other way around. Motherland is nothing if not protean. A peninsula is a body of land almost completely surrounded by water. Some people live on 1 can of soup a day. A little peach in the orchard grew, a little peach of emerald hue. I was reading this novel about a man who burned his girlfriend's house down and then later was almost completely the cause of her father's death. And they try to make a case for this rogue being rather an expression of the girl's own destructive instincts. So the book winds up without a sense of humor, endless love. And so am I. It's better to go back to Notes from the Underground for that. More subtle, like the weather's blatancy. Does that mean wind? But I'm sure you never asked me for my opinions. You asked me for something of beauty, like the idea of the constructing of a house, something less than esoteric, something formal that also has a use, a wedding song or a description of some semi-precious stones. How am I supposed to fit into this life where children eat so much expensive fruit and leave their trucks in the sand to be run over by the diaper man? Will the fleshy inflorescence of a collection of color photographs still look like a pineapple or pine cone or a small bomb that looks like one of those? You and I like having each other to ourselves. I compare the two hands of the two yous, but I still can't tell if the hurt one is swollen. Why do we have so many injuries lately? Is it wrong to walk into a door or to let windows slam on your hands? To be slightly stabbed by the midwife to determine the iron content? Something shifts, and as Wittgenstein would say, and anybody else, not normal, to take some pleasure in being obsessively careful, to quietly comb out the baby's hair and take one's time, to decorate the children with ribbons and whisper to them, to prepare special foods, secret inducements, to linger conversing about the dreams in bed, to encourage the counting of peanuts. These are the methods of the usual, inducements to the ordinary, to pass the time, to adduce pleasure, to encounter danger, to see silver spots before the eyes without fear, the safest form within which to take risks, the advertisement of the day's misery, if I can still look up and see the man with the glove, and a chance image of the accumulation of objects, the storehouse of pictures which will not work out in memory. There's only one time when you can't be doing this or that kind of work and have something like a drink make it easier than it is, and that's when you're giving birth to a baby. But there's nothing new about that. I wish I could try it as a man for once and be the one watching nervously instead of the inhabitant of this always female body, always momentarily fertile and prone to that, if I can use that word. It's worse than taking LSD, not over till it's over, hoping the baby will be born before another child wakes up, warning people that your screams are not real screams, like in a movie or a book, expressions of the forward movement of time, or movements of the forward expression of time, like words. In that case, scream is to lean forward and make the time pass faster, hours by clocks and what they still call labor, different from plain work, working in contractions of the muscles of the, and so on. You know all about it, I'm sure. Lucidly, there's space in between in which you feel like yourself again, and that is like the drink. Then when the baby is finally born, you don't know for a moment if you're thinking of yourself or the other. There's no reason why the words other and mother ought like an otter to rhyme. They didn't in Middle English, but then you wouldn't want to know the derivations for mother, the lees or dregs. I won't go into that, which is why it's difficult to remember to immediately hold the baby. You don't know the baby is different from you, especially if someone else is there. I had a baby once drawn out by forceps from my unwitting, unconscious body, and when I woke up, I said, "What is it?" It's worth the tedious trip of consciousness, with all the unnecessary pains to thus conquer nature with memory's astuteness. It's like the perception of color and after images. There is an end to the sensation, so of this letter.
Sophia Warsh.
Oh, I'm going to read something from Works and Days. Geology, night sky. The nuclear cooking of free electrons creates spirals, oolitics or pisolytic. It's a stalactitic wheat sheaf. I vanish into the universe like a wave, cosmologically, while you are a crenellated coxcomb. Let's be twinned, rolling into a ball of wind and water, made out of time. Crystals all have symmetry. Stars quickly be damaged, if worn as jewelry. Jupiter's magnetism conducive to the heat. Unlike a ruby or sapphire, a painted ball, a Saturnian system. A topaz is not a potato, but a potato can be like a heart. The night geology sky, bye-bye. The night pigeon sky, the pearly silk luster of your opalescent heart glimmers like a sequel to a night sky. The prequel being splendent like an opera in a small hall. The pyramids are closed. Desdemona will collide with Cressida or Juliet in 100 million atomic structures like a bird or geologic light years. Superstring theory might be astrology, the plump indigo fruit of a crystal system. Falling hail of telepaths, it's so unlikely we'd be here. Flat, lustrous surfaces, orthorhombically, or just minerally archetypes. Complex or simple in the breezeway, every specimen can be cut by a knife or corundum till political spirit fuses like shamanic allies. It's all good. All forms are pinacoids like ice cream cones. The ice cream takes a chance with absence of meaning through goblins, rather oolitic, if not massive. If you drop it, though, like tomato plants told eons ago to slow down in 2013, it becomes mammillary, even reniform, then hackly or blocky. Copernican modernity swelled like Homer and the Basques, but when it refreezes, it grows splintery or botryoidal. Oh, the way a mineral fractures can sometimes help identify it. Equal areas, equal spaces, equal times, equal rights for women. Their beautiful and often elegant crystal form. Universal gravitation has a slow cadence when rolling down a hill. Regular geometric shape and smooth crystal surfaces. Melville's whale is Elohim to some, dark matter to my twin, easily broken into a powder by cutting or hammering. I'm in love with the great attractor, my dog Hector. Sectile can be cut by a knife into thin shavings, his free streaming length determining the size of his grave, malleable, can be hammered into thin sheets like gold or copper, from which Hector could become another agglomeration, and stretching credulity till the zodiac devours transduction, minerals with a hardness exceeding that of the streak plate. Ball weevils eat the vine that annihilates native plants by growing too fast. Luster is modified by transparency. They float into the sky. Ammonia is methane. Carbon oxygen may seem softer than they actually are, or as hard as quartz. In the orgone envelope of the world are flying chariots. The hardness of a fingernail, a penny, an emery board, looms until rewoven as all other mammals. I love you. What's my name? Thanks.
Colter Jacobsen.
Hey everyone, so good to be here with you all after years. And thanks to Medicine for Nightmares. This is a great space. And also to be in the same space with these Leon Kennedy works is an honor and amazing. And thanks, Jason. I was racking my brain, what can I do for Bernadette? And Jason called me up and said, we're doing a reading, you want to join? So this is what I'm doing. I am going to read a collaboration with Philip Good, Bernadette Mayer and Philip Good. It's called Thrift Shop Blues. I hope not to speak of myself in the third person while shopping in a secondhand store trying to buy clothes or any other old treasures. I've got the thrift shop blues. There's 3 of us in the thrift shop thinking, why is that third person here? Is he a thrifty elf? Or a ne'er-do-well planning to steal secondhand clothes? Ye little old thrift shop? Used coats, used shirts, and clean. Let's roam around the store and see what can glean. The aisles are wide and the lights are bright, even if all is not as it seems. Let's see if what we can glean gleams or seems to gleam in almost the new year, according to this capitalist calendar. It's time to buy lava lamps. If only they had coats the color of the sky, that's what we could buy for New Year's at the thrift store as we celebrate the blue-gray sky. There's nothing to celebrate but thrift shops, or, if we could see them, the northern lights. There could be a coat that'd change color every day according to the sky color. Today, we'd have to get a gray coat with rain turning to snow. Got the thrift shop blues so bad we stumbled through the door, walked by the used paperbacks and old videos, walked around the bric-a-brac and back outside again. It's cold. Let's go inside the thrift emporium to get some warm secondhand stuff. It's slightly used, pre-owned. There could be a nebbish in there. And if it's raining too hard, we'll take a rowboat there. We'll look at all the funny hats. We can wear them inside and we can wear them outside. So let's not be late for the funky second-hand store blues. Somebody called it wearing dead people's clothing. You could also call it wearing rich dead people's clothing. Once I saw a mink coat and rewraps for $400. I have the thrift store blues. I've got nothing to lose. I have the thrift store blues. All I've got to do is choose. I was told that wearing dead folks' shoes is bad luck. But everything else we can touch. You might choose the clothes of someone who was touched and sent to an insane asylum, leaving behind a lot of great clothes, but only had one pair of shoes. For only a little money, we could be wearing something different every day. We could wear a whole new wardrobe and environmentally friendly too. All you've got to do is pop some tags. It'd be fucking awesome. And if you get some rich people's pajamas, we can have a little costumed nap. Haven't been to the thrift shop in so long, we might have to wash our own clothes. Haven't been to the thrift shop in so long, we might have to wear the same shirt twice. Or we might have to run as fast as we can to rewraps again. Once in Chicago, the river was going backwards. Again, it was winter, but it was summer. We went to a thrift shop, an ocean of old clothes, and set the season straight. A thrift shop in every town for every season, a charity shop for every reason. The country is getting needy, but the clothes aren't that seedy. I got the thrift shop blues so bad I can see them in the dark. I can see them when I'm greedy. I go to a thrift shop and get my fix. 26 silk shirts and a faux fur coat. They have one-of-a-kind items. They have assortments for all ages. They have flatware and glassware. Why don't you go in today? It's always like a going out of business sale. Liquidation, and there's more. Get in on the ground floor. Pre-owned pianos for the masses. Typewriters, galoshes, nebbishes, and scarves galore. Give them a home. Buy a spa for your feet or a machine to make something to eat. Get an old lamp to put next to an ancient sofa or easy chair and relax with a cup of coffee and some fine used china. There's money in used coffee, infused with caffeine, color, and the smell of popcorn floating around the racks of warm things, shelves of shining dishes. Look gloomy today like old foot spas. The best of the worst artwork is available. Old vinyl in stereo with moldy covers, plastic flowers and ugly vases. Buy it while you can or don't hesitate to donate. You have to get into the thrift shop mode. What's bad might be good, the unexpected is what you need, and a Jewish star on a Christian church's ecology incarnate. Goodwill, Salvation Army, and even the Idaho Youth Ranch thrift shop take their giving to the needy seriously and the poor shop there religiously. Aldi's is the food thrift shop, a modicum of employees, no brand names, just cartons, the Trader Joe's for poor people, owned by the same German brothers, but can anything be believed? Aldi's is kind of sad to be in, but not in theory. Steer clear of the fresh food part, it's weary. Get food at the food pantry. Some thrift shops have a box of bread by the door. There's no damage. Get a used sweater and make a grilled cheese sandwich. Put your hands together for thrift shop wealth. Hooray for the pre-owned, down with brand names and labels, except of course for tags. It's 50% off for yellow ones. In aisle 2 and everywhere in the store. Hunting for hand-me-downs, you say. Brand new for $1, you say. Color-coded discounts, you say. Too many tags to pop, you say. What are we waiting for, I say. I say, let's get this mink coat. You say this shirt is the color of you send me. How about this orange scarf? Oh no, another copy of Crimson Tide. You still play cassettes. You're in luck. You still play videotapes. You're in luck. You never know what you might find. Another schmuck's garbage is another schmuck's treasure for your pleasure. I'm looking for a pleasure treasure at the thrift shop to measure my luck. Will the polar vortex bring me a balloon to signal my desire to fuck soon? My come, going to kingdom come. Is the thrift store X-rated or overrated? Undervalued or overvalued? Power to thrift stores without a polar vortex or pretext. Let's blow up your wardrobes without reason today. 'Tis the season for gold medals. In tag popping on snowboards, free grilled cheeses at the end of the slopes. Let's wrap the anarchist flag around our aspiring selves. Property is robbery. What if we found gold medals at the thrift store and wore them inside and outside? Nothing but award-winning bling from one thrift store to the next. 50% off the gold with gold tags. On the second Thursday of the 5th month of the year of the rooster only. Free slab of beef thrown in if it's Valentine's Day and you are an owl. He or she who finds the most bizarre item wins bonsai plants, oil lamps and magic carpets excluded, Mardi Gras beads and beatnik bongos perhaps, broken watches and mismatched candlesticks, bright curtains, pillows, hats, and even a gravy boat, in which we'll sail to the next thrift shop. We're writing a field guide to thrift shops called Stone's Throw. I'll bet there's one in the night sky. And yeah, I wonder if I'd get through that. Thanks. I wanted to read something of her Bernadette's collaborations because she does so many of them, and who better than to read one with Phil. It's also really nice to have Sophie here, family in the house. And I'm going to read a letter from Bernadette. I didn't ask her permission. I hope she's okay with it. It's a poem I asked her to make for a right window gallery down the street for an installment for the duration of 2 weeks, I think. That was also with Caitlin, who's here. So I'm just going to read the whole letter, which includes the presentation of the poem. And it's also on, I found out afterward, on galactic gold paper, which I think is her kind of custom, at least for now. And you'll see why that's relevant. Dear Colter, first of all, how did you get your name? Did you have a colt when you were little and become Urid of it? I can't believe I never asked you that before. Yes, there's an eastern bluebird, and it nests in a particularly placed box or house. We have one house, but it's too close to a tree branch, so we'll have to start over. The blue turkeys I saw were actually blue water bottles that the maple syrup makers put at the bottom of some maple trees to extract the sap when using the hose, not bucket method. I started calling them turkeys because that's where the wild turkeys usually come from when they enter the field. Here's a poem for the window. The first line is inspired by the Greek anthology where poets say things like, I am the ship Achilles sailed in. I am a poem in a window in July 2019. Is it just me behind the pretty little window and just you on the other side? If broken, the pieces of the window would tinkle one little glass fragment against the grain of another. What could be more precious than a poem in a frame surrounded by the tinkling glass of a window? I feel like I'm so in love I might die, but then I do die. I become a Wendigo. Watch out. Maybe I'm the spirit of the reflections you now see in the bakery window. What pastry is that? When something's transparent, it's not blue or green or yellow or orange or red or purple. It's not even a donut-like black hole. The window gets closer to the poem. Hope you like it. You can title it Ode to the Galaxy. I think I titled it Ode to a Galaxy and only just realized that it was the, so I don't know. Articles. It seems to work, but then I called it Pastry or Poetry, so it sort of has two names. As you like it. I was thinking about quantum physics when I wrote it, how things change when you look at them. Toodle-doo, Bernadette. And I have a piece in the back that says Poetry or Pastry, which I also got wrong. It should be Pastry or Poetry. And that was in the window, and it's for anybody who wants to make a donation or a trade, but somehow it has to end up as a donation to Bernadette. And there's a piece of paper with lines. You can write poetry there. to take it home. Okay. Thank you so much, and thanks, Bernadette.
Thank you, Colter. Next up is Stephanie Young.
Thanks so much, Jason. It's really good to be in this room. I'm going to read from some of these translations. Am I close enough to the microphone? Okay. And imitations and collaborations. So this is large imitation classical loon. Patricia, my man, you disapprove of men, but when we fucked, you didn't mind my boyishness so very much. You said it reminded you of my Sophia. Now you and Beth attack my new boyfriend and say he hasn't anything to say, plus he's just like other men. To idiot Bernadette, you say, how I love men takes time away from our conversations, takes time from our conversations, our privacy, but you don't feel that way about Maureen. Laura'd be horrified to know, which she does, that I speak of you two as one. But girlfriends, remember the sky's the limit in these risky questions of friendship and of love. I've overcome all my travel phobias, my fears of enclosed spaces. I'll go to Staten Island, I'll go alone. Mommy and I aren't one, but I won't reform. I still want to make love to you two, as one, and two, him. And then I hope you'll forgive me, or indulge me, because one thing I do is I want to tell you a story, and then I'm going to read one of my own poems, which is really Bernadette's poem, sort of, I guess, a collaboration that Bernadette didn't know happened. And the first is that, so in part of my life, I do research on literary prizes, and so 2 days a week, I spend time with my friends Juliana and Claire researching the horrible ways in which literary wealth was distributed in the last century. And there's this poet, Richard Wilbur. Do people know this poet, Richard Wilbur? Mm-hmm. Okay, I didn't really know this poet, Richard Wilbur, but our metaphor for him is that he's like the spider at the center of the web of the last century of literary prizes. Like he's in every network. Like if you got money, you were probably in some ways connected to Richard Wilbur. And I didn't really know Richard Wilbur's poetry, so we were like, let's read a Richard Wilbur poem. And then, so this really famous poem, which is called "Love Calls Us to the Things of This World," there's this line in it, and we were like, holy fucks. Like, of course the person who gave away all the money really loves other people doing laundry. Oh, let there be nothing on earth but laundry, says Richard Wilbur. Nothing but rosy hands and the rising steam and clear dances done in the sight of heaven. So when I was reading poems by Bernadette, getting ready for this reading, I ran across the laundry, school, and food epigrams, and I was like, that's right, take that, Richard Wilbur. So it had particular meaning. For all of us, there is clothing. We have to wear it, even if it is not cold. O core is the covering of nakedness to be forever the chore of women. Unnumbered goddesses that I or he can invoke. Who shall take the responsibility for the laundry totally in this century? Clothing is scattered all about the house. Who will gather it all up and separate the dirty from the clean, then do the washing? We wash and hang up the clothing to dry. Do you think men wish this laundry to be forever wet? Put yourself in my place. I'm trying to teach a man to make French fries. He doesn't understand that eating is a pleasure. It's no wonder I've met his mother. Do you live with a man? I do. Has he ever taken over the cleaning of the bathroom? Why do men find these chores so demeaning? There is a man who says 2 Brillo pads could do it. This is a brilliant man, also a busy man, also excellent in bed. He does know about what they call friction. And then this is my collaboration with Bernadette that I don't think she knows about. And I think what makes it so great is that the container is all Bernadette's poem. So it's sort of it's a mashup of the poem essay with body art and feminist performance art of the 70s, which at the time I was writing this poem felt like really both very like prescient and belated. It was before there was a lot of interest again in that work. So I guess it's too late to live on the farm. I guess it's too late to enter the darkened room in which a single light illuminated the artist stripped from the waist down, smeared with blood, stretched and bound to the table. I guess it's too late to inhabit a glass-fronted white box-like room, dressed in white, against which the menstrual blood was visible. I guess it's too late to start farming. I guess it's too late to start struggling to remain standing in a transparent plastic cubicle filled with wet clay, repeatedly slipping and falling. I guess it's too late to buy 60,000 acres in Marfa. I guess it's too late to begin appearing on the subway in stinking clothes during rush hour with balloons attached to her ears, nose, hair, and teeth. I guess we'll never have an orgiastic happening. I guess we're too old to carry out maintenance activities in public spaces during public hours. I guess we couldn't afford to simulate masturbation while President Joseph Broz Tito's motorcade drove by below. I guess we're not suited to I am awake in the place where women die. I guess we'll never have a self-inflicted wound in front of an audience now. I guess entering a sex cinema dressed in a black shirt, jeans with the crotch removed, and a machine gun slung over her shoulder, it's not in the cards now. I guess Clive wouldn't make a good photographic montage in which their male and female faces became almost indistinguishable. I guess I can't expect we'll ever have a selection of photographs derived from images produced by the beauty industry now. I guess I'll have to give up on my dreams of being seen, clothed and unclothed, being systematically measured by two male researchers who record her measurements on a chart and compare them with a set of normal measurements. I guess I'll never be waiting for my body to break down, to get ugly. We couldn't get tied together by our hair anyways, although Allen Ginsberg got one late in life. Maybe someday I'll have the foreshortened barrel of a gun pointing towards the viewer. I guess joining our hands around the base's perimeter fence into which they weave strands of wool is really out, feeding the pigs and the chickens, walking between miles of rows of crops. I guess examining women's working conditions is just too difficult. We'll never have never really a collective, a group of women who came together to work on a public mural. Too much work, and still to be poets. Who are simultaneously the beneficiary of our cultural heritage and a victim of it, poets? Was there ever a poet who had a self-sufficient loss of certainty? Flannery O'Connor raised peacocks, and Wendell Berry has raised large-scale spirals of rusted industrial materials in incongruous natural and commercial spaces. Faulkner may have spent 3 days in a gallery with a coyote, a little, and Robert Frost asked a friend to shoot him at close range with a .22 caliber rifle. And someone told me Samuel Beckett lay hidden under a gallery-wide ramp, masturbating while vocalizing into a loudspeaker his fantasies about the visitors walking above him. Very few poets are really going to the library carrying a concealed tape recording of loud belches. If William Carlos Williams could be a doctor and Charlie Vermont too, if Yves Klein could be an artist and Jackson Pollock too, why not a poet who was also dying of lymphoma and making a series of life-size photographs, self-portrait watercolors, medical object sculptures, and collages made with the hair she lost during chemotherapy? Of course, there was Brook Farm and Virgil raised bees. Perhaps some poets of the past were overseers of the meticulous chronicle of the feeding and excretory cycles of her son during the first 6 months of his life. I guess poets tend to live more momentarily than life in her body as the object of her own sculpting activity would allow. You could never leave the structures made of wood, rope, and concrete blocks assembled to form stocks and racks to give a reading, or go to a lecture by Emerson in Concord. I don't want to be continuously scrubbing the flesh off of cow bones with a cleaning brush, but my mother was right. I should have never tried to rise out of the proletariat, unless I can convince myself, as Satan argues with Eve, that we are among a proletariat of poets of all the classes, each ill-paid and surviving on nothing, or on as little as one needs to survive, steadfast as any person's glottis, photographed with a laryngoscope, speaking the following words. The power of language continues to show its trace for a long time after silence, and fixed as the stars, tenants of a vision we rent out endlessly. And then I want to close by, I have this copy of Moving, and I, like a child read it, or a person who didn't have a highlighter. It's got really great, it's been colored. And I thought maybe I would read the parts that have been colored, but it was a weird reading. So I'm just gonna read one of the parts that's been colored. We've solved the problem. The problem is solved. Men are women, women are men. I'm pregnant for a while, you're pregnant for a while, If someone doesn't change into an animal, we won't be saved. Someone must change into an animal so that we can be saved. A man turns into a cat, a man becomes a cat. He gives himself to his friends in the form of lead and coal. The man-cat gives himself to us in the form of lead and coal. He draws himself with lead and coal. The lead and coal man-cat draws a picture of himself. He is a girl. The man is a girl in black and white. She sings. There are brush fires burning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, Clark Coolidge.
I was just saying to Neeli a little while ago that if it occurred to me that if I were truly to give tribute to the spirit of Bernadette, I would now begin to read for about at least 2 hours. I think she would love that I was being rude to all of you. It's a favorite word of hers in the days when she and I literally would read for 2 hours, piss off everybody. So instead of that, I thought I would read a small play to you that Bernadette wrote as part of our Cave collaboration. The two main characters in this are Hawthorne and Melville. She and I used to play that we were Hawthorne and Melville. She was Hawthorne, I was Melville, and we were both living almost in the same places they lived when they would have spent an evening like this, Lenox and just outside of Pittsfield. Destroy the mic. So this is taking place. Did I break it?
No, if you want to higher that.
Yeah, a little bit, I think.
Is that good?
Yeah. This is taking place after dinner at Hawthorne's house, a situation that often happened. Melville would drive over there in his horse cart, and they would sit and drink brandy and smoke cigars. Some other characters appear, and I'll point them out when they do. This is called Cave of Metonymy. That's a favorite word of Bernadette's. And it starts with a quote from the previous section, which was written by me. We wrote this work in alternate sections. And this quote is, "In time, they bend in silence and conceal from us the end of the cave of tension." Hawthorne. We were speaking of Ovid bending over Darwin, of Picasso being born dead, Bergson singing a soft, warm air rich in tang, a thoroughbred, I might add, of Vermeer pinning down zero, and Wittgenstein perhaps being prevented from washing his hands, of Cato boiling turnips, of Poussin's pounds, Gide's nipples, Gluck's water clock, Colette's pins, Van Gogh's spare room, John Hollander's soccer shirt, the holier-than-thou attitude of John McPhee, Cocteau's phreatic eyes. Melville, hold it, Nate. What does phreatic mean? Hawthorne, I see souls poised on the end of a pin. Phreatic is not in my dictionary. Maybe he meant frenetic or freakish. Melville, let's stake out a section from memory, the part beginning, who are these water striders, up to neat as a knife? You read it through once and then write down what you remember. Hawthorne, okay, here it is. Cocteau gives me access to moonlight, to knife light, a swell light. We itch to start the printing press so that our evenings in pizza will be downstairs. I am your brother in an Einsteinian universe. That's really all I can remember, but it's so long and really doesn't make any sense. Melville, that's because he wrote on each part of the road and listened to the radio a lot. He knew what he was doing. He had no time schedule. He wrote like a grist of bees for us to grind. Like cetology, this form of metonymy leaves much to thought and philosophy. What do you make of it now, Nathaniel? Hawthorne, I like a lazy talk like this with cigarettes. I'm sure phreatic is actually in the Oxford English Dictionary. I like looking at you with your big cigar sprouting through the floor and your voice deafening as the poor. But my voice is no longer customary because I love a long and complex sentence, not one that begins to be complex and then ends with a thud like, quote, the real world drew a favorable criticism from the late quartets of Beethoven, no longer distant and hurting his head. I mean, why did he have to end it on such a surrealist note? Melville, that's not surrealism, Nat, that's just common sense. Since Beethoven, let's call him B for now, since B was deaf by the time he wrote the late quartets, they no longer hurt his head. It's just that the end of the sentence has nothing to do with the beginning, the head hurting, having no relevance to the real world's criticism, and admittedly the sentence is not long. Hawthorne, the voice of reason, Herm. But look at this one. The canoe had come from Holland with candy to the lips. Melville, a simple cut-up. Hawthorne, okay, but where is the grace, even the gratuitousness, I could say at this point, of reason, following through, a bow to the reader in his or her mind, open to simple rationality, complex thought conveyed in fluidity of line, and it's insulting. Listen to this. This is the next one. He lay in the olden cave, his cycling sweater pointed toward the mouth, along with Orpheus, Dupin, Bruno, and other wiseacres. Not only is he not put in the commas, he calls them wiseacres to really fuck up the sentence. And it's no accident. Something weird always happens at the end of each sentence. I mean, it's not as if I'm paranoid about it, is it? No, time and again, we 19th century artists are truly fucked. Melville, never heard you wax so vehement before, Nathaniel. I like kicking around a sentence and a cigarette with you. Hawthorne, good thing we both smoke. Nope. Melville, now don't brood. You know the kind of reputation you get. In fact, you've already got it. Ha! The brooding, methodical, shy Hawthorne contemplating the folds of Monument Mountain's Persian rug, of whatever it is you said it looked like that mountain was wearing. Now, really, Nathaniel, how can you accuse anybody of surrealism? You certainly had your day sitting around making up stories about men whose daughters wear fecal flowers in their, quote, bosoms. Bosoms, ha! I'd never use that word. A phony closet surrealist Puritan who's obsessed with the sensual pleasures. That's what you are, ha ha. Hawthorne, you're the one who promoted the image of the brooder, Herman. You should talk. Pierre, or the ambiguities, really. And I wonder if that character is based on Melville's own life. All the old ladies go around saying that. Yes, he lived in a dark room in New York City just brooding because his wife hated him. Well, at least I've got my family life together, and people don't go around speculating about what foreign religion I'll take up next. And I don't make animals the ambiguous heroes of my books. I know who's good and who's evil. Melville, now don't get rambunctious, Hawthorne. I'm quite serious. Pour me another brandy, and I'll point out to you all the really lyrical lines of this fellow Coolidge. Hawthorne, well, it is a collaboration. Melville, these cunts. Hawthorne, what? Melville, seriously, now listen to these. In colors of loam and tied with string, the hippic branches of the great theory, matter is still no longer than light. Now that's a really great one. Hawthorne, typically you're just picking out all the abstractions. Let's analyze this line. A trapezius of citron from Ezra Pound in the Jade Stress. Yeah, that's pretty good. But before we get to that, I've been meaning to ask you what you think of this work comes first ethic or attitude. Melville, work comes first. Yes, it does. Otherwise, it's like missing the train and tightening the blouse. And then it says, Sophia, Una, and Julian come in. That's Hawthorne's wife and children. Hawthorne, but Mel, he says here, give your codpieces, every one of them, a real demonstration. Maybe he means he likes sex more, or even anguish. Wittgenstein tossed and turned. Melville, don't be naive. You can't read into works like these. Maybe once in a while you get a direct autobiographical sentence just mixed in like everything else that's mixed in, and then you can know that the sentence is the truth. That's the nice thing about these works. They do aspire to be the truth in a way that modern language never allows, say, you and me to come close. A ritual that ticks with insanity. That's what he says. Hawthorne. Now you're reading into that, when actually it says, you portage up to the cave and remove the pins on the white wall, a ritual that ticks with insanity. What does that ever mean? What pins? I must admit the preceding sentence is a knockout for a short one. Where do you buy those dowels that ring like bells? All modern life, but still assonant. I think he's got something there. Melville, don't be so sociological. I'll begin to think I'm in a motel room. You're forgetting the important points, the repetition of cadences. Are these works autobiographical? What does the syntax have to do with the meaning or the world? Can we have a good modern writer, etc.? The pins are obviously the ones used for caving, and stress is a caving word too, or a geological one. Hawthorne, not in my dictionary. Melville, you're very dependent on the authorities for someone who's become a scandal. Hawthorne, I wish you didn't know everything that's ever happened to me like that. Melville, why shouldn't I? We're contemporaries, and we've opened our lines up to the goddamn public for whatever it's worth by putting our fucking names and faces out in the open. You jackass, you've even had your portrait done 1,000 times so that everybody and his mother can think your faggot eyes follow them all around the room when they feel corrupted enough to stare at your oily likeness. Sophia speaks. I feel that when Coolidge says, for instance, the Cubists wrote in a language officious enough for Wittgenstein without hurting his head, we have a problem to solve. If we are willing and interested enough to deal with it at all, which of course I at the least always am. Now, first of all, there's the flow of the language, which the sentence takes quite beautifully and seriously from beginning to middle, which I would estimate to be after the word enough, to its own beautiful and complex ending, almost something I would like to hang in the hall. Here we suddenly bring in Wittgenstein, to my great delight, confuse him with Beethoven, who was deaf when he wrote the last quartets. For me, the previous thought, no longer distant in relation to Beethoven, is the key. That is, the Cubist language is, if you will forgive me, a link in this poet's mind, whether unconscious or no, between the grand qualities of the music of the master and modern life in its rare forms, with Wittgenstein, the great progenitor of all real interpretation, scientific and literary, as the fine and generous restorer here of the famous endless room referred to in the work. Wittgenstein has in fact created the endless room. It is his idea and not, if you may excuse an extension of this reading further, the idea or ideas of the writer or writers. Why they steal so much is beyond my moral comprehension. Wittgenstein, in fact, formulated the endless room in number 59A of Philosophical Investigations. These writers that you pore over so deeply, Herman and Nathaniel, are just humans forced to open the newspaper to chocolates and so to bed. Hawthorne, Sophia, you are too generous. Melville, well said, Sophia. Una, igloo, igloo. Julian, Julian, what ho? What do you say, Uni? Sophia, children, hush, and leave the more abstruse definitions to those who will have their entire adulthoods caught up in that disease of the senses. And remember that God has endowed us with a finer sense of what it is to be than these moderns acknowledge, they who study willy-nilly insensibility. Yet we still live, we who have studied the trapezoid birth of these more unparalleled yet necessary apparati of today's intellectual life. Yes, letters will die before the unwieldy sentence regains its form, and so good night. Hawthorne, Sophia really had a point there. Melville, as always, as always. And then it says, a knock at the door. Hawthorne admits the midnight guests. Louis Malle, hello? Or, hello. Paul, hello. Louis Malle, of course, is the great French film director who had just released a movie called Black Moon, which Bernadette and I talked about a lot and really loved. And if you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's available from the Criterion collection. Paul is Paul Metcalf, who was a neighbor of ours in the Berkshires, a prose writer who was actually Herman Melville's great-grandson on his mother's side. So he has to come in here. Melville, we are discussing Coolidge and his cave collaboration with that tart mayor. Louis Malle, so have you discussed the sentence, Mondrian puts the blue cave at a short distance from his work table where the dodecahedrons look too fake to be fake? Melville, which one? Hawthorne, you mean the sentence followed by, he figured they had to move to show intimacy? Maule, yes, that's it. The most daring sentence in modern literature so far. Except, of course, I find it hard to keep up with their magazines coming out so irregularly, and so much of who's published where and when, depending on mood and fraternity. It's so cooled down, so unbarbarous. Hawthorne, yes, but they do write a lot. I mean, they produce a lot of good writing if you can follow them and it. Melville, Hawthorne here has just had a lesson in integrity. Hawthorne, Herman, I would appreciate your not advertising my inadequacies to every passing stranger. Melville, actually, Mr. Nathaniel Everyman has thorn. I praise you to the skies when you aren't around. Hawthorne, well, hot noogies. Now that Sophia's gone to bed, so what do you think of these new pine cones, the collaborationists, Paul? Paul, good work, good work. They're going in the right direction. Yet, Hawthorne, yet? Paul, well, Hawthorne, I enjoy you, yet I know I remain an enigma to you because I'm closer to the real world. Hawthorne, Paul, please don't flaunt your amazing youth and vitality and independence and Yankee individualism. We aren't talking about you, though I must say, for stupid Herman's edification, that your idea of the page is a totally integral one, and you are certainly more inspiring for a young person than these people who just string ideas together, even words, without generosity to the rational reader. And besides, you know how to maul. You mean like reality is blue over 9 miles of triangle, the octopus returned? Paul, Coolidge prefers the bath to nature. Very few adjectives. Melville, now you see, Nathaniel, there's a real down-to-earth cirrus cloud. I mean, criticism. None of that soul-in-your-shoe fantasy about German shepherds, meaning sadomasochistic restraint, tying up, that sort of thing. Paul, now you're really way off the mark. Hawthorne, wait a minute, Herman, I think you've had too much brandy. Louis Malle, the resolution of all this is really in hand. If only all of you guys had taken a turn writing your own film scripts. Hawthorne, don't you flaunt your modernity, Louis. Melville, now where do you get off calling him Louis? I'll never know, just because you've been to Rome. Even that's past history. Hawthorne, I didn't say Luis, I said Louis as in Henri. Give Paul some of your famous brandy. Melville, from my pocket on, I swear I shall never understand the Boy Scout mind of Nathaniel Hawthorne. Hawthorne, Herman, infants could teach you what a simple sentence is. Louis Malle, now wait a minute, you two great guys can't get into such a mess about what a simple person like Clark Coolidge means. He's direct enough, he likes the movies, Paul, and learns much from them. Melville, now what do you mean by that, Paul? I thought you were making sense, and here you go defending the wrong thing. Paul, what's the wrong thing? Just because you think I'm down to earth doesn't mean I agree with you. Melville, but you're supposed to tell Hawthorne what's going on. He's up a tree. Hawthorne, I'm no further up a tree than you were when you thought a pizza might help your house out. you know, Piazza. Melville, now you're really getting plain. A fine friendship this turned out to be, and I told that reporter I was in love with you. Hawthorne, what? Well, if you didn't insist on drinking so much, we might have a coherent discussion, just the four of us, instead of letting literature fly to the winds. Melville, fly to the winds, typical. Eat your heart out, Hawthorne. You'll never be as good as Coolidge because you just aren't as smart. Hawthorne, smart, ha. He's just trying to imitate Mabel Mercer, and that's where he's at. Melville, never knew you'd heard of her. Hawthorne, I'll put her on the record player, sure. Louis Malle, please do. Mabel Mercer, if you don't know, was a black English cabaret singer who became very popular in New York City in the supper clubs in the 40s and 50s. Mabel Mercer sings, danger, I'll eat your heart out, tall as a water boy's portage end. And boy, you are as tall as a blue dodecahedron move of Mondrian's. He steals south around my muscles, approaches up in American history. Man, you gotta see him. Man, you gotta see him. Its bends conceal us. Such a cigarette, freedom of men rather than history. Oh man, you gotta see him grind cinnamon. You gotta see the big mud pond rather than history. You gotta see the Germans. I gave him some cord, but he fashioned a grid of muscles for me. He called it language, just small caves and old hills. The bites so neat we tore the clothes, and he's cursing me in a fashion of a cavern. It's raining, and man, you gotta see him. The dream of rain, you gotta see him in counterspin. I find the falling danger. I'll eat your heart out, taller than a Boy Scout. Will steal the South Bend around my American history sound. I wake up, as Rilke said, man, my tree heart is dead, but man, you gotta see Coolidge drinking tea. You gotta fit your fucking shoe to the great theory. He ain't bleary. He's close to the cities, to the nitty-gritties that gave us Stan Kenton. So declare your pennies, because they put a dent in. My blue jeans canoe, its bends conceal us, and we sneak up the river, honey, just its bends annihilate, so Dr. Hegel can try a late appearance. Lovers of danger, gotta stay flat in our shoes. Lovers of danger, we seal up our caves with canoes. Amen.
Thank you so much, Gene Day.
I'm about 3 feet shorter than Clark. Is this anywhere near where it should be? It's okay? Okay. I don't think there are any dodecahedrons in what I'm going to read. It's wonderful that everyone is here to support Bernadette Mayer. Unlike Clark and some others of you, I don't know her personally, although her work has been pretty important to me in various ways throughout my writing life. But like everyone else, or a lot of you, I was deeply impressed by the achievement of Midwinter Day when it came out. But actually, it wasn't until I read The Desires that this kind of work became a touchstone for things that I was thinking about and doing. The Desires of Mothers to Please Others in Letters, which I'm going to return to, because of its delayed publication, coincided with my own experience of writing while having a baby. Mayer literally and unbelievably wrote through her contractions, or she says she did. I merely wrote before and after the fact. So I thought I would read this one, Brilliant Bravado, October 20 Night, which mostly leaves behind some of the quotidian detail that generally set her scenes throughout this book, and concerns itself instead with an almost purely lyric logic of divided consciousness. And I just divided my book. Brilliant Bravado, October 20 Night. Nothing answers. There was a nightmare of fluency in the dream, the pleasures of autumn, two ways of portraying everything and nothing in two codes. The hideous woman then, in her frenetic feast on me, was the answering woman, the demon, the mistrusted, persuading sugar of the celebrating food. It was a cylinder, like Egyptian tits of the painted brain, remembering you turned to me, and it was a threat. You were another, so I screamed to tear you away. I had walked all the circles of the fearsome library that was also like an autumn construction of words meant to be pictures all on paper. The handsome man or men who live to be 50, age prematurely and then die, lost to a few. It may be this reincarnation of the program, the fitness program or pogrom. Still, it was a generous torture, and still, when you feel good enough, you go and do something no one else could do. My location in the universe might be this. I might be learning, and there is something heavy on me. It weighs like a tail or foothills, a gratuitous place to find out where maybe everything else is, but what is here to be pulled or stuck here. It's sorry to have a reason for its location. It would rather be choosing and then defending the oils and acrylics of some sophisticated painting. The walls surrounding the shut-up doors. Give me your paintings back and I will be angry and mean, he was saying. A painting exists somewhere that is as confused as stuttering and as ugly as that thing, as the mind can be. There is an ornamental axe in the clutter. It's like money or memory, unnecessary or not used, uncomfortably found on the streets, say. You look around, it's a relief to swear off the ugly confusion where the poisonous ocean meets the human land. The nightmare was perhaps a thing you saw. I make you act ordinary, and then I'm disappointed. It would be this intimacy we forgot to do. It doesn't flutter, it's not transparent. The clean black axe cleaves it like a penchant for the perfect object, learning to speak. No one speaks to us, and the autumn goes awry. An exhausting swelling, nothing answers. Why exist in this world from 20 years to 20 years? Why insist that others do? Because it happens. It's a kind of beauty that has to be sought, as though already gone or even dead. Nothing is offered, and the sweetest statements get jammed with noise, sloughed off, and I can't look you in the eye. A better measure of the titles of people might be to say we are doing it all wrong, with absence, with a sort of crooning, missing what welfare is, a remark on nerves. We don't know what else. It isn't familiar, like smiling or leering. There's no praise, for it's all like passing by in the car. The llamas never saw us. We didn't shake hands with the empty tubes of paint. before they were gone, the lunar predictions of assholes or multifarious, nefarious plenitudes of permanent castings in something like tinny aluminum, the absence of a peaceful pleasure determined to change the size of things. So let it be. Maybe it'll all go a different way. Nobody said you had to exist here along with your thoughts of other places, and a relation like a daughter to this beauty, if it's here, this old illusion and its jugheads are waiting to get off easy with that parole. Maybe if one or two things were going like poets or mothers, the whole rest would fall in the ocean with the paint and the paintings and the paper and boards. It was the fathers that were at fault for beginning this descent. Coolest country, cease to leave this absent-minded curse on me like two sentences on clean pages, part mine. There's so little punctuation that it's challenging. Then I thought I would read a little bit from my own prose series, Narratives from the Crib, which was written while my infant son was napping in the 90s. At the time, I felt not just interested in, but governed by a shared, divided, confused, blended consciousness. There are 10 of these, and I'm going to read, I think, 5. 1. One would have to have known the ironies of autarky to understand the pictures in this particular book. In it, the partial mother declares her omniscience, but I am thinking about extravaganzas unfolding in my other left hand, the one that will always be free and invisible to her grasp. Pages earlier, I noticed there are 2 doves in the nest. It must take 2 to be a dove. Am I really only one? Syntactically, it's a question of accumulation, as in verses. I hear them and am always adding to what I've already sung. Sentiment? That's next year, I think. If I am a privileged infant, the world is already grandiose. Six. Use notebooks, she said, forgetting my lexical limitations. I wanted to describe my inner self as a house, lived in by generations, yet full of debris peculiarly my own. But at the end of the day, it seemed to go without saying, shut the door, close the blind, good night, good night. This kind of intrinsic description is projected on me all the time, which is not how I get my ideas. As though I am the honored guest at the dream of good life, belly up and basking. But why does this good always seem to be derived from nature? Well, the grass is certainly good to eat, and as I say in another book, the people is grass. Then how can we live in houses? My circular thoughts never end up quite where I'd planned. In fact, if you ask me, who is intent simply on happiness, it is the continual rearrangement of life's items, nouns, that describes the sensitive, moving tip of experience. Each day I add to my piles. Picture a man burning up in fog. Picture the fog burning off. It's the pictures I will miss. 7. Thank you, this chaos was wonderful. We had been talking about time, whether in terms of experience we should call this noon, night, or morning, and whether, in any case, the metaphor might be allowed to come back and eat itself, as we have so often been tempted to do. I was in bed with my desirabilia, cozy in contemplating the interdependence of my first words with the sounds of theirs and the silent ones in pictures. I mean, it's something of a relief to know it's not wholly up to me to invent the shadows, even the best of my own future thoughts. Then I fell asleep and dreamed briskly of leaving home, of the march of human history over my backyard, but that set off a certain squawking, then the sirens, and suddenly I felt mad to suck, but unsure whether this was a conservative or merely punctual instinct. a case of temps perdu or prelude to the seriousness of a kiss. Later I may innovate. 9. Today, for example, is not the date of a particular cloud, but a repetition. The moving parts of fog, the lengthening bungalow windows, stipulate the utter ipseity of me, my wanderlust, the fluidity of which she's already forgotten, stashed back in a cupboard of uncollected thoughts. I get out of bed. Among the sublime and lonely jets, I legislate, but my grip on the sill wobbles. I shudder from sheer grandiosity, fall, then realize there is something faintly ludicrous in my subjects. The large bathers that seem everywhere to obscure the horizon, landmarks in a forest confusion whose name is, frankly, genital. To get back to my point, today has been assigned to a shepherd, me, in an odd combination of hurry and languor called attention. My goal is to unfill. Memory is not a question of neatness or a noise I remember making. I'm a nomad in territories of my own devise, and my maxims have a retroactive taste. And returning to Mayer, I just wanted to close with the very end of what's actually not the last, but the second to the last letter in the Desires of Mothers. Because the last one is after she has the baby. This beautiful letter, which is way too long to read, is almost a folk tale and ends with a semi-poetic sequence. At the Bradford IGA, a woman smiled at me. We live in a bowl of small towns. It was like each person was a button on your coat. Now the foolish dogs come into the house. There is no privacy. It was sumptuous with another blue sky today. It must be on account of ovaries there are memories. The men could exist anytime. They can even freeze sperm. Each country is black. The women are smiling and comparing journals, the work of the past, living in some other woman they might happen to notice. They're ready for that. But the men, even the stoical, silent ice fishermen telling stories at the store, don't have the feeling one knows how the other must have felt. So memory gets lost and is unknown, except that the man's dog barks again. So the man remembers someone must be coming. And then, of course, there's a knocking. And for a second, we're convinced we might be right to bring forth issue.
Thank you so much, Jean. Gloria, Frym.
I can imagine reading these sonnets with a mask on. It just wouldn't work. Thank you, Jason, for organizing us and gathering us here. And thank you to the bookstore, which has a marvelous name. I haven't timed the reading, but, I'll just read and then probably not for 15 minutes, but everybody's kind of tired by now. But just to note that the title of this book is Sonnets, unlike Ted Berrigan's collection, which was The Sonnets. So the article is left off. These are like, I think that was very intentional on Bernadette's part, but exactly how, I don't know. In any case, some of them are just called sonnet and some of them have other titles, but this one's, the one I'm starting with is called Sonnet. My hand is like a muffin just baked in the electrocuting, toaster under the light of the smoke detector full of American Americum to create the further tumors that make poets underpaid in life compared to the more dismal occupations like vacuum cleaning or storing thoughts in machines or selling objects to people. Writing poems is really dumb. Oops, I knew there was something missing. I progressed into bifocals. Writing poems is really dumb, but fuck it, even we want entertainment. I saw the art of the city today, smokestacks and buildings from the hospital windows, and where everybody I know is imprisoned and being demeaned or on Demerol, or else everything's okay. Thank God they're all fine. Having had operations in there, you wouldn't want to sleep with me in exchange, would you? This is my new form of sonnet. This is the closing of it. Please don't stop loving me right this moment, or else one of us might kill the other, just like in the papers. Sonnet. 1,000 apples you might put in your theories, but you are gone from benefit to my love. You spoke not the Italian of Dante at the table, but the stingy notions of the bedded heterosexual. You cursed and swore 'cause I was later to come home to you without your fucking dinner. Don't ever return su numero de telefono. It is just this I must explain. I don't ever want to see you again. Empezando el 2nd de noviembre 1980, something I don't love you. So stick it up your ass, like she would say. I'm so mad at you, I'm sure I'll take it all back tomorrow and say, then they flee from me who sometimes did me seek. Meanwhile, eat my existent dinner, somebody, and life. Come on, show me something newer than even Dante. A Chinese breakfast. Is it so far to the door? Does Max's sandwich diminish my confidence to reach it? Do fears as unnatural as dreams to waking reflect something of anything for everyone else? Should madness ensue, would the tiny hole for a dislodged nail in the wall be its focus? Does the world belong in you? Did the finch devour the blue jay, right in the cleft of the dead bird of paradise? Did she slip the awful cup? As spring comes, a man's apple juice emits an ankle bracelet. And you're as forlorn as the mean dentist smock of our culture. Plus, he can't find a parking space because the ice is still thick, as the thief of the way a day might memory look. Sonnet. You jerk, you didn't call me up. I haven't seen you in so long. You probably have a fucking tan. And besides that, instead of making love tonight, you're drinking your parents to the airport. I'm through with you bourgeois guys. All you ever do is go back to ancestral comforts. Only money can get. Even Catullus was rich, but nowadays, you guys settle for a couch by a soporific color cable TV set instead of any arc of love. No wonder the G.I. Joe team blows it every other time. Wake up! It's the middle of the night. You can either make love or die at the hands of the Cobra Master Commander. To make love, turn to page 32. To die, turn to page 110. Sonnet. It would be nice to lose one's mind, my mind. I'd like to lose it. I wouldn't mind at all to be in the lunatic asylum at last, all for you and for the taxi drivers. I'll go and be asked what year, what day it is, and who's the president, and how come he's resident. I could teach prosody there, but nobody knows what it is. So send me away to anybody, anywhere who might not know something I might not, since I must vice versa live. What do you mean, perforce? Army or Navy or Marines? On gifts for grace. I saw a great teapot I wanted to get you, this stupendous 100% cotton royal blue and black check shirt. There was a red and black striped one too. Then I saw these boots at a place called Chuckles. They laced up to about 2 inches above your ankles, all leather and in red, black, or purple. It was hard to have no money today. I won't even speak about the possible flowers and kinds of lingerie, all linen and silk with not yet perfumed laces, brilliant enough for any of the graces, full of luxury, grace notes, prosperousness, and charm. But I can only praise you with this poem. Its being is the same as the meaning of your name. Yeah, they are really nice. Sonnet. Beauty of songs, your absence I should not show. How artfully I love you. Can you love me? Let's be precise. Let's abdicate decorum. You come around. You often stay. You hit home. Now you are knocking. You need a Tylenol. From all that comedy, what will you tell? At least you speak. I think I'd better not. Often men and not women have to sleep. You've come and gone to write the perfect poem, and not 10 like men or blossoms, but I am profligate. I strike the ground for ruin while you sensibly sleep. And so in this last, at least a poem can have an end. How could you sleep? I go to wake you up, my Lysistrata, my unannounced rhyme. Epistemological sonnet. Inner keys on your my key ring, our metal ring. For holding keys is gold, is a bass drum I cooked, a convincing convection of stews you have to learn, how to talk so you can cook Mount Cook very well, or cook the Cook Islands and cool your heels until there will, of course, be no more wars or graduate schools, but all peace will meld, even scholarship, back together, and Kant will come up often before the kangaroo courts. A number of lines has a structure picked up from habit at you and melancholy truth. I might sing forever with never a goal or solution, except the singing of the tables of the alphabets and the millions of interconnecting macaronic words in the free verse families of the Indo-European stones. One of my favorite ones. Because I didn't think you could do this with a sonnet, and I bet Bernadette didn't either until she wrote it. Sonnets. The landlord was thrown out of the rent stabilization group. 1. The landlord was thrown out of the rent stabilization group because he did so many wrong and bad things. We don't know what this means yet, and whether our rent will go down or up. If that's a punishment for us or him, he who's harassed us all this time, then we harassed him. This is not like love. Now finally he's thrown out. We threw him out long ago of the possible ways of being human. And so maybe it's kind that he's now out of time with his colleagues because of his manipulations. I don't like the landlord's hand so much that I am happy, but why's he been so derelict like a lover as to let things go this far? Okay, this is part 2, and doesn't have any punctuation, so. It's impossible sometimes for the woman not to think of the landlord, if he's a man, as a father. That's what some of the old women in this building have told me. You wouldn't want to live with him. This is why nobody ceases to pay their rent or goes on rent strike or is willing to face another father judge in the courts. Do you remember how your kids' teachers, if you have them, can make you feel nervous in that same way? The authorities avoid them. So it is right the landlord is a man. His agent is a woman who is so pervasively divisive as to be inhuman. I won't talk to her. She makes me want to weep. I won't lie down. I won't give a tip to the landlord's pimp. Could this be a sonnet? I wonder on it. Who is who and what's what? I don't live in this building by accident. This is my reservation. I live with the sleeping lions. I was reminded cars were, when you crossed in the middle of the street, that they thought I actually owed them something just at the moment they woke up to roar at me and you and perhaps eat us. Let's see. The presence of one who sometimes leaves a place. It's a secret if you don't tell and don't lie. He can really eat a ham and cheese sandwich. No kidding. Will he come? Now he's too cold. I count. I will give him another name. I wake him up as if all people could do all things. You court the food of sleep, while I take your presence less lightly. I want to get to the 9th floor where you're in my bed, as if reason could prevent my ascension in the lift. I shout your name. Another name? Call me back. A tree out of its group is vulnerable, like paint washes in the air. Reasons about the end of the literal distance between us. It is from you renamed that I would write this in your arms. What of the church and the place you touch? How dare you sleep? What of the soul, luxuries, and discourse? Did you eat? Something I can't say here. You don't exist if the leaves are inept. Come by peonies of all colors. Mommy, the twilight zone is on. I love you. Not as fire escape view or epic cartoon. You are my father in his gray overcoat. You let me let Edwin see what's up. That in my vagina would fall a drop of cock, and it would be on the daylight and night, so that Theodore A. Mayer with a cup had a son, and late for school was I, to tend the Bill Berkson tombs. Do you want to go to them? Said creamy God. There are little bits of turkey in the sauce. And why did I happen to see your photograph? Know you as equal, not am I so as I you. Okay, here's the last one. Sonnet, we are ordinary, come here. Excerpts, I love you from abstracts. So what? Who cares? Songs of one. An experience of this is a case like whole, and I'm not from there. I write to you to say I know nothing as ever. No rhyming, no everything there is, no proceeding, no thinking. You will be my, what will you be? And that is the end, except for the instance. What are you wearing? Why aren't you here? Where'd you put the window? Come here, tell me the rest of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Gloria. Neeli Cherkovski.
Watch that wire.
Yeah, right. And I'm coming up without the cane. That's great. That's great. So, my relationship with Bernadette goes back to memory. which some of you know she did by voice. She wrote it by voice. She did 1,000 snapshots around New York, and it was an exhibit of the snapshots. God damn the suspenders, and the geez, whenever I read the suspenders go into rebellion, and but the fact that she did voice, and so for the last 3 years, as my eyes start to fade, I've been doing voice recognition, first on my iPhone, and then that stopped, and I've called Apple 3 times, and they can't seem to do anything with it. I have to go into the Genius store. So I did it on a computer, and it's amazing. And what the computer does, it only does, I was telling Clark and Susan this morning, it only does paragraphs, it does prose. And I just do line breaks, and I do them totally spontaneously. So it's a great way to relearn what a line break is. And it turns out it works out fine. It works out better than actually sitting there and laboring over it. Well, I should do the line break here, I should do it there, you know. So I started something called Song to Bernadette. And I actually sent it to her. And it turned out it was 8 pages, and now it's about 70 pages. I'm only going to read a little bit, but it's going to be a book. I love her name, first of all, but that memory, that book memory is just, if you haven't read it, it's just unbelievable. And then the book I've been reading lately, actually rereading, I used to have a copy of it, Works and Days. If you know that book, that is such a great, wonderful book. And she talks about age. You know, she came over, what I'm going to read is about when she came over with Philip for lunch. She was reading in Berkeley. And we're on the deck, and we had tuna sandwiches. I remember, it's in the poem, I shouldn't have tipped it off. And I was so excited, and she was reading the next night at Berkeley. I'll just say, at the next night at Berkeley, I can't get this out of my mind, she read, and there's about 90 young people in the audience, and this really fresh-faced young freshman came up to her, the kind of guy I like to look at, and he said, I'd love to do an email exchange with you. Would that be okay? And she said, yes, but keep in mind, I'm an old lady. I just thought that was quite something. So I'm going to try and read this. And I must say that that while we were having lunch, right at the end of lunch, these poets showed up at the door. And they came without a by your leave. They walked through the house to the backyard, to the deck, the redwood deck overlooking my garden, and there they were. And one of them was Jason Morris, to whom I have to give great thanks for this event today, and Colter Jacobsen. It was wonderful. There was a whole bunch of them. And she said to me, where'd they come from? And I found out later that she had told them she was having lunch at my place. And they were supposed to stay over, but they looked up the stairwell, and it was just so steep. And, you know, she and I share the idea of the cane, you know. So this is one of the songs to Bernadette. Rhodes is near at hand. The peaches are ripe. What if you torture the same sentence for decades? It behooves a poet to stand aloft, set eyes on a terrace of rich soil, hoard of subway tokens in the cave. We took the A train to the hard bucolic earth. I sleep where no man enters. History fell on the front steps until darker forces broke the lock. Don't be mad at destiny's anger. Flip a coin. Poetry was always a mistake. Thank God, as honey drips from the hive. Love seemed as fine as wine on a terrace. We cannot yet wore a black scarf to the ocean path. You could smell the ashes and smile. Sappho sits on a stone throne. You don't love the horizon. She told her neighbor, who is a seamstress concerned with issues of identity, the garbage cans are fire pits. Just south of Rikers Island, where pistachios ripen, she explains the demise of the goddess with fire in her palms. Our fragments are like photographs. Look at the almond tree in the pear orchard. Here come the lost children. Orpheus walks down 2nd Avenue in a blizzard. Poetry looks to be plumb out of luck unless you take shelter. Dumbass, drunk, run for it. Meet me in the woodlot, up a dove and down to perdition. Did you know that memory had its own garden? All you have to do is ask. When we say sentence, we do not mean ripe apples. We imply a sputtering furnace. The lady of this song grows restless and dreams talkative leaves at St. Mark's in the Bowery, or your sentences are desires to live a life of common words leading to the silent muse. Man is a labyrinth as beautiful as the handiwork of spontaneous martyrs weaving in solitude until the sky dies. The new day sparkles, bright lanterns test narrow garages where abandoned violins exude their grain. Bernadette writes as clearly as any mirror. She started at the window looking for snow-covered trees. She walks up the long drive. It is our story. Sing for West Broadway, crowded in a taxi. See how she sounds like a locomotive in the good olden light. Why explain? Just open an ear. Brilliant silver sentences, fulsome youth, high hopes, frugal life, long lute, claustrophobic choir. At 10 p.m., the city is one half yellow cab. Imagine falling on Houston Street, where she writes out of an underground network fraught with wiring and kiosks. From darkness, a beam of hope. Leave letters burn, more silver than not. A caravan of noisy workers, honking horns, snarling, be aware, every step in the right direction. Her child shrieks, mourning ecstatic wisdom. She snaps scenes in the Divine Comedy, clouded by brick and glass. She walks through decrepit alleys where mad women weep. Stolen umber Cadillac way back when everyone was new. Without warning, Bernadette, from great height, waited in silence for memos from the spiritual grounds of ordinary life. Her smile in gardens where imposing old men lay down. We're talking ecstatic mutability and tapestries of rabbits and monkeys. It took time for the incomplete bird to make her flight. Clouds are convincing. Whenever you think you are, think again as sea wind brings death of a blue whale to your door at an ungodly hour. Cast a white net, step lightly, sweep the garden, think of the gray wolf and snow on a car hood. You create this world and stay as long as possible. I see wildflowers sketching forms on air. When it quiets down, we move sound around, unbound. We paint words over ominous Pallor, oh great poet, I listen to first morning rain and hope our drain doesn't clog. Tell the shoppers and all those other shades not to fade so easily. Don't give up the flow rights. Keep drinking, driving, forget those dirty dishes in the sink. If the skunk claims dominion, so what? Chase a raccoon, pet your dog, rake the leaves. So many miles, too many neon signs on the night sky, blinking on and off. I must phone when you are ready. Please wake up, my pen leaks, little bird is dead. Too many letters, flotillas in fact, brass tacks, rusted nails. So much depends on luck and how the soul abides on and off the grid. Outside of town, the pornography shops do a brisk business. Sour men go huffing, puffing, red cheeks, loose trousers. There was once an Indian village here and an artesian well, and then what happened is that the mythic fathers vanished. Sorry to be late. These rhythms don't always cooperate. I'm left stranded on a cold avenue. Come again to my patio. Yes, come and hold these birds. There stood a pine tree in the yard. We study branches and busy silence. You, upstate in loud Iroquois winter, I am making letters of clay and putting them in the kiln. Look closely as the chances say good morning, and there you are, and stalwart Philip. The cat buries his head in the pillar. Thin layers of heat kick into gear. Winter engines cough in the distance. Midnight is the cat's name. Roundabout, Bernadette circles windswept forest. She writes through dawn. A you are, B is there, C forever, D you find under the blanket, E where words erupt on a European quilt, F finalizes, G in truth, H when necessary, like a high tide, like sun and moon, hand in hand, I care for you, J when justice follows, K kicking, screaming down the turnpike, L loops, M before the flood, N a number of images bound, oh do you mean light, pray for us sonnets now, Queen of Night, rough road, S is for Bernadette, T trembles like long-stemmed roses in a vase, when are you going at such an hour, the cat wants out, the cat will vanish, we await a poem to fall from heaven. X is where you sign. Y, I know you anywhere. Z, zoologically inclined. Prove every photograph. Prod your thoughts from corner market to unclean streets. Waves of Hokusai, dust on New York City. Snap a good line. Charming nursery rhymes. Thought shows no mercy, sleep in a warm and comfortable bed. Who are you? Did we not meet last year, or am I mistaking you for a cormorant? Bernadette Mayer is coming for lunch at my house. I'll make sandwiches, maybe tuna on whole wheat. Should I offer to read one of my poems? No matter the demands, mindful rubbish will kick in and scream, have you taken notice, oh Zodiac? Why bother hiding? Come meet us at the poetry reading. Death is a mistake. Life is about to break and begin again. Thank you. Thanks again to this guy here, Jason Morris.
Thank you all so much. There's books back there. If you'd like to buy them, all proceeds go to Bernadette. Thank you.